that are joining us today from across the UK and China. We have everything5pounds.com Chief Operating Officer, Robert Kolowick. Hi, Robert.
Hi, guys. Pleasure to be here. I hope everyone is well.
We have Hubby Chief Executive, Martin Bish.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Great. We have Dada Group's General Manager of Product Operations, Dora Guo. Hi, Dora.
Hi.
And we have Flair Audio founder, Davis Roberts.
Hi there.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. Now, this is a big subject to touch on. Let's add some context. So we've really seen online sales soar. 46% we've seen online penetration go up from December 2019 to December 2020. And this trend is only set to continue in 2021. With so many retailers operating at peak levels, the pressure is really on to manage capacity. How can retailers power their online fulfillment in this new digital first environment? And what solutions and strategies should they be adopting? To answer those big questions, our panel is here to help. So let's get into it then. I think Robert and Davies, as you're the kind of retailers here, it would be great to hear how online penetration has really shifted in your businesses and what benefits you've seen. Perhaps, Robert, let's go to you first.
Okay, thank you, Megan. As a pure player, we've been online for past 10 years, and we always had decent traffic going to the website. In the beginning of COVID, of course, there was a huge drop, and the business lost a lot of revenue, but quickly after just a few weeks, it really picked up and exploded. And we've been left with this conundrum, having a couple of people left us because there was no work for a few weeks, and then dealing with twice, three times the order volume was not maybe a surprise, but definitely not expected for this time of the year. We are used to peaks, and we usually let them smooth out. Our peaks are product driven, and they are not they don't really belong in the marketing calendar. So how we deal with it is we would just tell the customers, look, we've got an unusual volume of orders. Your order might be out of SLA by 1-2 days, and that's how we deal with it normally. However, yeah, we've added worries about the new pandemic that no one yet understood back then. It was more challenging than that. What we found going forward is that because we are a discounter, we don't really invest a lot of money in our marketing activities. Instead, we rely on social media and word of mouth and our customers to be the ambassadors. As a consequence of that, our message and our unique selling point tends to be pushed into the background when big retailers go into the discount season and they slash their prices by 50% or even more. So our volume, once it evened out, kind of remained constant. There was not many surprises there anymore. And we managed to steady the ship as well as in the context of pandemic we could. So I guess, yeah, that's sort of background on us in terms of uplift because of pandemic. So yeah, the story is the initial surge, of course, that provided a bit of a boost, and also one more thing that provided the boost, we've got a huge warehouse and quite a good headroom if we want to switch on the capacity. So we were able to socially distance and police this all the way throughout. I think we benefited slightly out of other guys not maybe being prepared and shutting down their distributions momentarily, but as everything went back and steadied for them, we kind of leveled out again.
Warehousing so obviously important to supply chains. We'll come on to that later as well, and how that's supported Final Mile. Davies, let's hear from you, because I know that you saw I think about 270,000 surge in product sales last year, or correct me if I'm wrong. So it would be good if you could expand on that and talk about the shift for your business.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, Flare started in 2010. We were supplying professional audio systems to concerts and tours and festivals. I started to develop loudspeaker technology and realized that across all sectors, sound devices were using acoustic principles and they weren't using a particle approach. And that meant that I realized that all sound devices could be innovated into. And so we started to develop loudspeakers. We realized that the market was a very tricky one to get into. We faced a lot of friction from the other brands, and the marketing space is very cluttered. So we started to develop into consumer products. 2015, we launched our first earphone, and then we launched our first ear protector, went on to crowdfunding to enter that space. It exploded. We ended up with about £2.1 million worth of sales of our first ear protector. And from that moment, we discovered social media and we discovered the power of targeted advertising. We then scaled from there. We went through a period of 2 or 3 years where we had explosive products and then really quiet products. So for us, I had to innovate and find broad markets in a sector that hadn't been done before. Our sector is audio health. It's our own sector. Nobody's in that space because nobody's ever tried to alter the way sound enters ears, alter the way that you can reduce stress, alter the way you can improve sound quality. So for us, it's a journey of enter the market space, innovate that market space, understand how we can adapt our technology and our products to suit it, and then scale. So for us, the one thing that we didn't want to do, we learned very quickly, was if we do our own logistics in-house, we're on a fixed cost model. And we went from employing 40 people to 20 people, back to 30 people. And that's not something that any entrepreneur wants to do, because it's really a dangerous journey. It's a morally wrong journey. So for us, outsourcing our logistics to an efficient operation was the number one goal. And from there, it's been a case of just innovate, get R&D focused, understand where we're going into each sector, understand that we want to own the ear. That's what our goal is now. So it's a case of getting all our ducks in a row. What we don't ace, we don't own. What we ace, we own, and off we go.
Great, love that. And I think it's really important there. You've highlighted that you outsource your fulfillment. And then obviously, Robert, it's great to have your perspective as well, because you're talking about that you have your own warehouses. So great to have a mix there. And I think we'll come on to that later on in the discussion. I'm keen to get Martin, your input here, because you're obviously working with retailers with their e-commerce delivery strategies. So, and you must have seen a huge surge while working with them this past year. So what can you tell us about the steps that you've been taking to manage capacity for them? And what are the kind of learnings that you've had from that?
It has been a really interesting year, and growth has been fabulous. We've grown by about 10x since the beginning of the year, but it's been challenging. So we've had all the problems that everybody else has had with staffing, with space, making sure that people are spaced out in our warehouses. It's a bit easier for us because we have a unique model, the hub model, which splits a large warehouse into micro warehouses, smaller spaces, typically run by one person. And so people work in their own space anyway. So that made it easier for us. But we still had big spikes in requirement for staff, but also spikes in staff leaving. Every time there was a lockdown, of course, we'd get 20% of staff that didn't feel able to come to work. So that was a massive challenge, because we only face those logistical challenges. So if you're a retailer and you're doing everything, as Robert is, and I take my hat off to him, because it's a very complicated thing to do. If you're managing all the product and all of the fulfillment, you've got to deal with the complexities of that in end-to-end space. We only have to worry about the fulfillment, the logistical piece on behalf of clients, and so that allowed us to deal with just that subset of problems that relates to that. We didn't have issues with spikiness, for the simple reason that if you're continually growing at a rapid pace, then you're just hiring ahead anyway. Whereas if you're not growing, if you're reasonably static, or if you've got growth that is less than whatever the seasonality is, you've got to account for that seasonality, which often means bringing on staff and laying off staff. That's very challenging, but it's also quite upsetting if you're an ethical employer, as Davis describes. You don't want to be bringing on staff and laying them off. That's not the way you want to treat people. So we're in the fortuitous position of having the position of our staff underwritten by that continuous growth. And we have systems in place that deal with spiking, that allows us to move people around to do different jobs when there are spikes that exceed the sorts of growth levels that we anticipate. So that's been fine. We've had to deal with Brexit, of course, along the way, not just COVID. That created challenges, stuff that couldn't go into Europe, trucks lined up outside our building with nowhere to go. That was fun. But it's been a massive growth year because we experience a sort of magnification of what retailers experience. So if retailers do well, then we do that times 770, which I think is the number of our clients currently. And we onboard about another 150 clients every month, so it just gets more and more complex. But that also smooths out the seasonality. We have clients that sell nothing in Christmas and everything in summer. And so that allows us to deal with seasonal issues that you wouldn't be able to deal with if you dealt with only a single sector. And we also deal with lots of startups, which adds to the complexity of our situation. We built our business really to deal with a largely uncontested market. Half of the SME space has just can't find fulfillment. Fulfillment companies don't want to work with you unless you're established, unless you have very few SKUs, unless your basket size is very high. So we entered a difficult space with a product that dealt with those complexities and reached out to products like Davis, entrepreneurs that have brilliant ideas and want to focus on product and don't want to have to worry about the back end piece, which can be particularly complex. So that's why Robert's position is so impressive. To do it all is very impressive.
Yeah, and I love that you've actually made fulfillment open to everyone and making it a lot easier, because it is such a difficult subject. I mean, I write a lot on supply chain for Retail Week, and it's one of the biggest areas. So that's why we're having this panel discussion today, to try to get to some of those answers. Let's come to you, Dora. You're actually behind Dada now, which is China's largest open on-demand delivery platform, been making big waves over in China. So I'd love it if you could tell us a bit more about the platform and how you've been supporting merchants with fulfillment and what you've seen this past year.
Sure, thanks, Megan. So Dada Group is a leading platform of local on-demand retail and delivery in China. So the company operates Jingdong Daojia, is one of the largest local on-demand retail, and Dada Now is the largest local on-demand delivery platform. So actually, with the Amazon effect, people nowadays they have raised their expectations for delivery speed. So to deliver fast has become one of the important ways for retailers to provide differentiated service for their customers. So we have built a specialized on-demand delivery system with accumulation and optimization over a huge amount of delivery time over like 6 years. So for example, Walmart is one of our key customers. So we have provided the access to Walmart Group. So they are able to connect over 400 stores nationwide in China to Dada platform. Another example is Sam's Club, which is the membership-only retail warehouse owned by Walmart. So we also provide the partnership delivery service for them. So they are able to provide quick delivery service for over 1,000 premium goods for their customers. So last year in December, we celebrated the 3rd anniversary with Sam's Club for the partnership between us. And the average delivery order volume has increased more than 10 times.
Wow. And how are you managing that capacity your side? I mean, Martin's just said that you're kind of set up, seeing this fortuitous growth at his company and been able to kind of stack up for that. Have you seen the same at Dada now? Were you kind of fully prepped for it?
Yeah, actually, we spent really a long time to achieve that. So we have been working for like 6 years. So we have huge amount of data, and our technology and algorithm is able to like improve the efficiency of the delivery. And we have like dynamic pricing system, route planning, and like the real-time tracking of order. All these kind of technologies can help the retailers to do better.
Great, that's really interesting. Thank you. And you touched on the Amazon effect, and I want to come on to that because Martin's also got a different take. And as we said on the last panel, I like to have a mix of opinions here. And Martin, I know you said that you think kind of the Amazon effect is perhaps creating, giving retailers a false impression of what customers want, and that perhaps there's a bit more flexibility there, and it doesn't need to be a race to the bottom. Can you expand on that and tell us a bit about what your take is?
Yeah, I think it's not just Amazon that's pushing the idea that everybody wants everything right now. I think there's lots of VC cash that's going into businesses that do that kind of thing. But our experience suggests that's not really the case. There's a minuscule category of items that people really must have now. And then there are lots of events in our lives that mean that we want something now at that particular occasion because we're fixing something at home and we don't have the right glue, or I can't find my phone charger. But it doesn't happen that often. So all things being equal, I might choose the one that delivers fastest, but things are rarely equal. If I'm looking for the fastest delivery, there's usually some cost involved. And 9 times out of 10, consumers aren't interested in paying that additional cost to get something now that actually they don't need now. Our requirements right now are relatively limited. I mean, we spend most of our days at work, then we move home and so on. We aren't spending our days desperately needing a new thing at this particular moment. And I think that's what many people don't realize, that there isn't the demand. We see that at both ends. So we see what our 700-odd clients want. They typically don't want to pay for faster services. Most of our clients are perfectly happy with 48-hour delivery. If their consumers were battering down their doors, insisting on faster delivery, that would be reflected in the services they purchase from us. It's just not happening. And then we've done a fair bit of consumer research. What consumers say they want more than anything is to be able to dictate when an item arrives, not that it arrives quickly, because they don't want to have to take another day off work because the item didn't arrive in the slot that it was set up for. So consumer research doesn't reflect this desperate need for now, and certainly the way our clients use us doesn't either.
And it actually echoes, Lisa mentioned our e-commerce 2021 report at the start of this welcome, and said that we actually found the majority of customers were more tempted to shop with a retailer again if they delivered kind of discounts and freebies over kind of the flexible delivery and return. So I definitely think there's something to be said for that. And Robert, we had a chat earlier in the week about this, and you had a take on it as well, about the kind of massive couriers that you see on your street on the same day, and what you think the solution could be. Do you want to tackle that?
So that's true. Amazon is conditioning us, and as a customer, I love the power that I've got under my thumb, and the fact that I can have something within 2 hours. The first time I actually was forced to reflect on it is in the beginning of the struggle last year. I ordered something that wasn't really an essential, but it was on Prime Now, so it obviously arrived in 2 hours. And when there was a knock on the door, I opened the door a bit too quickly and almost caught the delivery driver face to face. And I saw a very scared and concerned look in his face. He definitely didn't expect me to be there. And I then immediately felt guilty and sorry, because I essentially put him at risk by asking him to come and deliver something that is just a flight of fancy, right? And so that made me think that, yeah, we are just spoiled and conditioned to expect everything. And as customers, we do expect the world, but we are not prepared to pay for it. Especially if it's not needed. It's a different case, as someone from Screwfix once pointed out. If you're standing with your finger in the leak, you only have one hand to order on mobile from Screwfix, you kind of need it in 15 minutes if possible, right? But that must be the only situation, well, not the only, but one of very few situations. So the other thing that I'd like to point out is the fact that whenever I'm working from home, and I try to limit that because I've got a newborn and a 6-year-old, and they are spring-loaded, and yeah, I'm seeking refuge in the office, of working hard in case my wife is watching. So whenever I'm working from home, I notice that every courier possible in UK visits my street, not once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times a day. Even Royal Mail sends a postie and then a special delivery, or maybe a van with a heavier parcel. And I'm thinking, how is it that we are in the 21st century? We've got all this spare capacity in terms of computation, all this insight into data and AI. Why don't we just drop it off like a Nordic model? into the supermarket and let customers pick it up at their convenience, or just send one carrier out of the central dark, not that central to an area dark warehouse and deliver once a day, but multiple parcels from multiple retailers that were delivered by multiple carriers. I don't really want to see 7 or 8 couriers, as lovely as they are. I'm in logistics, so we always have a moan about conditions, but yeah, just why don't we limit it and kind of centralize deliveries and then just drop it off, not even maybe once a day. And to this point, I remember I was always very impressed with the delivery model that Abel and Cole, the grocers, adopted years ago, which was against the current. They will tell you on order, oh, we'll be in your area in 2 weeks on Wednesday at 4 a.m. All right. And there was not, oh, can I have it tomorrow? Can I have it at 3 or nothing like that? It'll be like, we'll drop it off. It'll be around 4 a.m. on Wednesday in 2 weeks. Thanks. Not negotiable. I loved it because that's a very sustainable and responsible business on so many levels. So yeah, I think that Amazon effect is just fancy, but if it doesn't happen, there won't be any problem. Plus, pandemic made us look at one another more as human, and we started just cutting slack to everyone. The way you cut slack to your postie, but then you hate your lifestyle carrier that chucks the parcel over the fence into the pond, right? Okay, so yeah, that's my take on it.
No, great. I think that's a lot to be said there for those tuning in. But I think they'll be trying to kind of see how they can deliver next day, or how do they fulfill those customer demand expectations. And I think that there's a lot being said in this discussion that you don't necessarily need to do that. So it's really important that we raised it. I want to also come on to and go to Davies, because I want to know about how you've been balancing demand and margins, because I know that's quite small. Online retail margins, sorry, are often quite small. And is it sustainable to do that? You're outsourcing, so how's that helped you? And how you've been balancing everything? Can you give us a bit of kind of insight into that?
Well, we're lucky in that we are obviously a manufacturer, so we're developing our own products, so we can build our own margin into our own model. So when we develop a product, we're very much aware what the cost to get it is to market, what the tooling costs are, what the shipping costs are, although we got hit with a curveball in the last few months to do with the shipping rates coming from Asia. The 5-fold increase really affected us at the wrong time as we were scaling up what we had in our warehouse. But so really our R&D leads the design in Flair to enable us to make sure we can make it work from the get-go. So we're not really faced with making a very costly, expensive product and then working out how we can fit it in the marketplace. We sort of start from point one. So we're quite rare in that instance. We do have a channel that we use across the world with different retailers, small independent retailers, and we do use Amazon. But we tend to avoid Amazon as much as possible as a brand, because if you have your products on Amazon, one, you don't own your customer if you're with FBA and you don't get the data from your customer, and two, you're building their brand, not your own. And for us, we want to build our own brand. We want to retain our customers. We want to work with our customers. We want to take them on a journey with us. So that all comes at a cost, and obviously we try to make sure at the end of the day we're efficient. Our largest cost is by far our advertising. We are operating on a direct response marketing strategy, so all of our adverts are using Facebook, Twitter, Google's algorithms in order to make sure we're efficient. And it's really my job to make sure that that maintains efficiency. We know precisely what our fulfillment costs are. We know precisely what our logistics costs are in terms of getting the stuff into us, and we know what our production costs are. So we really have a set of fixed figures that we work to, and we scale up and down based on what our performance is in terms of efficiency. So I figured that we're actually in a really good space because we're able to scale that. We don't have to always maintain a specific break-even margin because it really depends on the costs of advertising on that given day. But quite recently, we're pretty much now performing sustained performance every day. I think mainly because the digital space is stabilizing in terms of efficiency. What we saw a couple of years ago were it suddenly becomes very, very cheap to advertise, then very, very expensive, then very, very cheap. And now it tends to have stabilized quite a bit. And it's certainly in our space anyway. So that's really how we manage it, is we build our margins into our product design. We build it into our efficiency of knowledge of what we've done with previous products, and we deploy it from there. So we're not feeling that squeeze in terms of the retailer space. I know everyone else is, which is obviously, yeah, I feel for them because it's a difficult space, especially when volumes change, efficiencies change, shipping rates change. It's very difficult.
I think it's great that you've got that oversight. It's definitely something that a lot of brands, as you say, don't have. Also, really interesting that you brought up a point about marketplaces. Obviously, we've seen Nike come off of Amazon too to get direct control. And those listening in that listened to our market masterclass on Tuesday will have heard us talk about the benefits of marketplaces, but it's worth noting that they're not all silver bullets. So just wanted to flag that too. I want to ask a question about collaboration, because you can't really talk about supply chain at the moment and final mile without talking about the power of partnerships that we've seen this past year. We've seen tie-ups with on-demand apps and retailers using that. We've seen sharing of warehouses. We've seen lots of different retailers outsourcing. So I'd like to come to Dora first and then go on to Martin to see what you've seen in the market.
Yeah, so actually we have a lot of tie-ups on our platform too. For example, we worked together with Sam's Club to open nearly 100 Depot Before Club store in the past years. So in this model, customers are able to get access to the premium goods from Sam's Club even before the club opening. Yeah, so actually we also create uniforms which has both our logo Dada Now and Sam's Club. So this uniform professionalizes the delivery service and also strengthens the recognition of two brands. So for Dada Now, we also will provide specific delivery procedure training for riders who serves Sam's Club. So I think the tie-ups actually create a win-win situation between retailers and the platform, and I believe it will continue because both parties are eager to improve the efficiency and the quality service for their consumers.
It's basically a virtuous cycle in that sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great. And Martin, what about you? What kind of part of, as you've said, that you've seen a kind of acceleration in sellers coming to your platform, what part's collaboration playing for you and partnerships?
We inevitably collaborate within the space because we have to integrate with so many different partners. So we integrate with something like 20 or 30 channels right now, and of course with all of the couriers. So we try to take a collaborative approach with channels. We work with them to bring clients to them, and vice versa. We do the same with shop systems. But increasingly, we're also collaborating with entrepreneurs who want to think about the fulfillment piece earlier in the process. So Davey spoke earlier about how they had considered that, the size of the items going out, the weight of the items going out, the packaging and so on, and when thinking about the product. And it's crucial, but too often companies come to that late, particularly if they're a high street brand and they're thinking about moving online. They've not built their products to ship. And so it can often be the case that you simply can't afford to ship it profitably if you're to include the price of shipping in the item price as well. Maybe it's marginally larger than a large letter, which means it goes out as a packet, which means there's perhaps £2 more you're paying for it, and that could destroy all your margins. So we're working with entrepreneurs that want to think about fulfillment at an earlier stage to ensure that they can make the entire end-to-end process profitable, rather than come up with a nice margin on a product and then realize that that's destroyed by the fulfillment piece. But can I just say something else? Something Robert said I thought was really interesting, talking about the grocers and how that they have a slot a couple of weeks hence and you have to like it or lump it. There is a sort of an inverse relationship between the the exclusivity of the product. If you love that grocer, you can only get what you want from that particular grocer, and how much friction you'll tolerate on the delivery process. So if you have a brand that everybody wants to come to, if you have a product that you can't get elsewhere, so Davis is in the fortunate position of having such a product because it's unique. You don't have to worry so much about delivering quickly or in a particular fashion, because people can't get what you've got elsewhere. So that the kind of concerns about whether it's fast enough, whether there's a delivery slot, whether the delivery is cheap enough, these emerge from the sort of more commoditized products that you can buy anywhere and from 1,000 different brands. If you want that particular grocer, if you want Davis's Clever products, and I live in Bath, we've got a number of local companies there that do what the Roberts grocer does, and I buy from them because their stuff is fabulous and I literally can't get it elsewhere. So I think looking at the kind of products you've got and what you can get away with in terms of delivery, where you can save, what services you can utilize that are perhaps less expensive, take longer and so on, because your product is more exclusive, is worth looking at.
Yeah, I love that. If you've got a kind of really unique selling point, you can use that to your advantage. Thank you. We're actually, there's so much ground that we can cover again on this subject, but I want to ask you all, what's your one piece of essential advice for retailers to navigate this changing landscape, and particularly around fulfillment? I want to come to Robert first, and then we'll go to Dora.
Right. So because we are a discounter, we sell everything for £5. It's a fixed price. That's our unique selling point, and we also are getting away with a lot, to Martin's point, because we sell ex-high street stock that was sold at much higher prices initially. We sell it for one fixed price. So to this extent, we can get away with charging for delivery instead of having it free, or maybe taking a bit longer instead of doing it the same day. But actually, operating a business that has virtually no margins opens your eyes to a lot of truths that I don't think kind of surface in a business that might be healthy and with balance sheet that can survive a storm, and good management might not still pick up on it. Service is not something that is to be taken for granted. It needs to be a discussion, it needs to be communicated, it needs to be agreed with customers. I'm pretty sure that customers are comfortable with longer delivery times as long as you're honest with them about it, and you keep up to your contract, because in the end, in my head, I have a contract with each and every customer, and they did pay for the item. They expect the service to be provided. If I break it, well, I better tell them about it in the first place, but better still just not do it. But yes, we as business owners or business managers, we've got one obligation, first and foremost, is to kind of wash our face in the morning and not lose money, and provide livelihoods to all the employees and their families that commit their time to us. So I think it's not head over heels to satisfy the customer. It's first of all, who are we? What Davis considered as we've heard. So yeah, be loyal to your business first and foremost. You kind of need to pick it up from there.
And I wish that we had more time, because I'd love to delve into it a bit deeper with you, Robert, because I know that obviously with everything being £5, that there is obviously, you've got your margins far more stretched, as you pointed to. So perhaps we could take this conversation offline, and we might run some content afterwards, so for our audience listening in, you can find out more about that. Let's go to you, Dora. What's your advice for retailers to navigate this changing landscape? And I guess you might have a different take on it, given that the Chinese market has massively kind of got back on its feet ahead of other markets.
So my advice is not to ignore the digitization. So in the past few years, we have seen the digitization is the trend of the retail, and it continues to grow. So the boundaries between online and offline business is becoming like blurring, and because of the pandemic, we can see that the trend of online business is becoming like more and more important. So in China, actually, most of the CEOs of retailers, they have listed the digitization as one of their top 3 priorities. So this is my advice.
Digitization, thank you. Let's come to you, Martin.
I mean, the first thing is if you're not already online, you need to be. The high street is not going to be what it was, and that was always happening. It's just been accelerated through the COVID experience. So you've got to be online, and when you are, you've got to think of logistics as fulfillment as part of your product experience, which means considering how you ship. So the availability, the competition. Is there some measure of exclusivity in your product? Can you afford to dictate the terms of fulfillment? Is there not? Is it commoditized? In which case, you're going to have a broader range. If you can, build for economical shipping. So start early in product development if you're not an existing company. And then the last thing I would suggest is that you customize shipping for platform. So on something like eBay, free shipping is dictated because you won't get as high a position in the search results because there are algorithms if it's not free. Whereas on your own shop, you can afford, knowing that they're on your shop, they like your brand, you can afford to charge people for the shipping process. So there's no one size fits all when you take your product to the fulfillment market. You need to have a more complex, multi-channeled approach.
But I love what you said there. It's part of the product experience. It's not just kind of a separate singular entity. So yeah, great point. And let's come to you, Davies.
Yeah, for us, it's all about speed. The retail model obviously is great for established products that are in a broad marketplace that people want to buy every day. But for innovative products, digital is the future. It has been for some time. And so for us, we've got to make sure we get our goods to people within a reasonable period of time. It's important that we track everything. So if customers, as long as it's going to come to them and they know where it is and they can track it, I think that's the most important thing, being able to track the delivery. Especially if you're like us, we're shipping to 186 countries globally. So being able to know where something is important, especially if during COVID, when there was a significant delay on things, we then realized actually everything needs to be tracked. So that was important. Another thing that's really important is customer services. We've got to, as a digital company, make sure that we have fluid, instant and quick customer services and be able to be contacted on any medium that people want to, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email, phones, even live chat on our website. So having that fluid communication with our customers is key. Having information that customers can get to instantly is key. And it's really about speed and simplicity. If you are efficient and you're good at what you do, people will keep coming back to you. So for us, it's all about getting that efficiency going. I'd love to see some innovation to do with creating some spaces where websites can sort of hub together, a bit like what Martin's done with Habu and logistics side. I think it'd be great to start to see some sort of hubbed retail spaces where people can go to shop for certain things and look at different websites. That's what I'd like to see, innovation in that area. Google really, that's quite, well, it's very broad, and it'd be great to, if somebody's looking for headphones, etc., to go to a place where you can hub these sites together. Doesn't really exist at the moment, and that's what I'm looking for in terms of where we take Flair.
Great. Well, there you go. There's a challenge for any of our entrepreneurs and non-retailers listening in today. So yeah, really interesting. Thanks for that. We've only got time for one audience question, and I will say to everyone that's submitted questions, we will get back to you post-event. I'll ask our lovely panelists here to share some answers with you, and we'll get them to you. So you'll definitely have that answered. I guess one question that we haven't actually mentioned, we kind of touched on it. This company said, we are looking to outsource our fulfillment, but there are so many providers out there. What should be the key considerations? Perhaps Martin, it's bringing you in, and then Davies, given that you're the retailer perspective there.
The obvious ones are price, of course. I mean, it's got to be, it's got to be effective for you. So you need to work hard on price. If you do look at price, you need to make sure that the prices you're being offered are inclusive. Many fulfillment companies will have 20 or 30 different prices for the various things that they do for you, and they won't necessarily be mentioned in the sign-up process. we simplified that into a couple of key prices that cover everything, so you know exactly where you stand. The other thing is make sure that they're a technology-first company, because fulfillment traditionally has been a kind of old-fashioned business of warehouses with third-party software bought in that's owned by somebody else, which means that if you want changes, that doesn't happen quickly. They must persuade the third party to do them. There might be a 6-month waiting time. So we think of ourselves as a software company first. We rebuild the entire stack of software. We build integrations for free for anyone that needs an integration we don't have. You want a technology-driven company like that, because it is e-commerce. This is not for a high street shop. This is for you to build your online business, and you want essentially a technology company to assist you in doing that. And the other thing I would suggest, if it matters to you, and I think you should, of course, is that you look for those that are employing people ethically. There's a lot of very bad employment in the sort of fulfillment space, where people are working very long hours, where they do incredibly repetitive tasks, and when they burn out, they're thrown away like light bulbs that have faded. You want to work with a business that treats its staff properly and retains its staff. Again, turnover of staff in this industry can be as much as 20% a month, which is shocking. We worked hard to design a business where the churn rates here in the warehouse were the same as in the office, which is as near to zero as makes no difference. Find a company like that you're happy to work with.
Yeah, price and ethical people. Now, Davies, I'm afraid actually I don't have time to go to you, but thank you all so much. This is a subject that I think you could talk about for kind of 3 hours, because there's just so much to delve into. But hopefully you've all got some kind of top line thoughts there. I think there's some really good points made around the Amazon effect. I think there's some really interesting insights to see what's going on in China with Dora. So thank you all. Thanks to Martin, to Robert, to Davis, and to Dora for being here today. That is the end of Accelerating E-Commerce Week. So thank you, Habu, Covio, and DLA Piper, who've made this all possible. This masterclass will be available on demand, so feel free to share it with your teams, or if there's something you learned and you want to come back to, you can just access it on demand. And also, if you missed our Tuesday Attract masterclass, that is also available on the Retail Week homepage on demand. For those retailers that signed up and that wanted the opportunity to network, we will now be going to a 30-minute networking session, which is a great opportunity in the absence of physical events for you to really network and discuss and meet with your peers. So please do head over there now. Thank you so much.